In 2025, the PLA Navy became the first Asian Navy since the Imperial Japanese Navy more than 80 years ago to field more than 2 aircraft carriers. Now, 80 years ago, the Imperial Japanese Navy used its fleet of 10 carriers to drive out European powers like the Dutch, the British, and the US out of their Asian colonies. Now, the PLA Navy has so far used its 3 aircraft carriers to intimidate its neighbors. There's a big difference there. Between the 6th and 7th of December, the PLA Navy conducted a large-scale air operations exercise near the islands of Okinawa. That's Japanese territory. The aircraft carrier Liaoning and escort warships operated in international waters southeast of the Okinawan islands. The drills included approximately 100 takeoffs and landings by jet fighters like this one, carrier-borne jet fighters like the J-15. And this marked an unusually intense display of carrier-based air power near Japan's southern territory. Now this marked an unusually intense display of carrier-based air power near Japan's southern territory. That's here, the Okinawa Islands in the Western Pacific. And this activity overlapped with both Japan's and China's air defense identification zones, and this prompted Japanese self-defense forces to scramble F-15 fighters for monitoring the exercises. And during these exercises, China's J-15 jets twice locked fire control radars on the Japanese F-15s. Now, radar locks simulate targeting for potential missile strikes. It's dangerously provocative behavior, and Japan has hence described these actions as dangerous and escalatory. Now, this isn't the first time that China has used its carriers to intimidate its neighbors. In September 2024, China deployed all 3 carriers for the first time east of Taiwan. The Liaoning entered Japan's contiguous waters near Okinawa in a show of force mission to block potential US reinforcement routes to Taiwan. And in May this year, China deployed the Liaoning again to the first, and in May this year, China deployed the Liaoning and the Shandong for the first time outside the island chain barrier. They conducted 260 landings and takeoffs. Near Japan, Philippines, and Taiwan's east coast here. The Shandong operated in the Philippine seas with over 400 sorties. They simulated anti-access area denial strategies and, interestingly, carrier versus carrier battles. Now, the roots of China's carrier coercion lie in a single event nearly 3 decades ago. Now, in 1996, China launched a series of live-fire missile drills to intimidate Taiwan, and the US responded by sailing 2 aircraft carrier battle groups through the Taiwan Straits, right here. Now, China realized it could not prevent US carriers from intervening in a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan, and US carriers could operate with impunity throughout the Western Pacific. Now, that one incident in 1996 became the cornerstone of a twin Chinese carrier obsession. On the one hand, they perfected an anti-area access denial or A2D strategy to deter US aircraft carriers from operating in the Western Pacific. Now, China developed carrier killer missiles like this one, the DF-21 ballistic missile, an intermediate range ballistic missile repurposed to attack carriers far out at sea. At the same time, China also built up its own fleet of aircraft carriers. It presently has 3 carriers. It is the second navy to operate aircraft carriers. It has more carriers than any other country apart from the United States. Now, China could field as many as 6 aircraft carriers like this one, the Liaoning, in the next decade. It will be second only to the United States, which of course has 11 aircraft carriers. Now, there's a historic parallel to all of this. At its peak in 1942, the Imperial Japanese Navy fielded 10 aircraft carriers like these ones. The IJN was in fact the first navy to use massed carrier aviation against targets. They combined 6 aircraft carriers like this one the first Imperial Carrier Striking Division to strike at Pearl Harbor. They used 353 aircraft on the 7th of December 1942 to attack the Hawaiian Islands. Pearl Harbor was right there. And this attack on Pearl Harbor dragged the United States into the Second World War. And the rest, of course, is history. The Imperial Japanese Navy was defeated, its carriers were sunk. But the question now, over 80 years later, is could China's carriers now spark off another war? Now, that is the big question East Asia is asking.